tape.
Yay!
Was a short trip. Steve, we're going to start with you first because you're familiar to everyone out there.
Yes, hi everyone out there. It's a shame just how familiar I am, but that's it. The paternity suits are still pending.
Yes, but the statute of limitations on all the others should have run out by now.
Okay, that's true.
New books. You've got several new books either out or coming out shortly.
Yeah.
And one that you're really proud of. Let's talk about it.
I've been busy. The book that I'm most proud of is called Iron Shadows, and it will be out by the early in February or late in January.
Okay.
And I just honest to God, no kidding, feel it's simply the best thing I've ever done. And
Why?
Because
is it topic or is it your skill as a writer that's
both.
been growing?
I mean, my skill as a writer has been growing by leaps and bounds, I think. And the topic is, I think, ideal. I mean, it contains all the different elements that I like. In other words, it has sex and violence and it
rock
has
and roll?
humor. I don't think that there's any rock and roll in it, unfortunately. Next time. It enables me to play games that I have enjoyed playing in some of my other books. I feel like I'm able to take the whole thing to a higher level, and the initial comments I've gotten from people kind of bear out that this time I managed to put it all together into one package, and so I'm very, very pleased about that. And then in March...
Now, how does that relate to your other most recent book, Blood Brothers?
Well, it takes place in the same universe, but there's no connection between the characters, kind of, sort of.
Now, how does that universe relate to our universe?
The universe, I call it the rainforest universe. The idea is that much like we're afraid that as the rainforests are pushed back, exotic diseases are going to emerge from which we have no immunity. My idea is that each group of human beings on this planet had their own native magic, and that rituals and religions and so forth partially evolved to suppress that magic and hold it in place. But as people begin to visit from one cultural matrix into another, European magic works great against Asian religions. Asian demons work great against European religions, and that each of these different cultures, each of these different groups of people have produced magics which can work against the defenses of another culture. So I'm playing some interesting games, and I played that game once in Blood Brothers, and I'm playing it now in a different way in Iron Shadow. So they're different stories with different groups of characters, but it's the same idea. So it's our world with the idea of magic working in certain specific limitations.
Hello. Bert says it's okay.
Okay.
Sounded like there was an audio problem.
Okay.
So you've gone now. You just mentioned when you said these characters aren't related to the characters of Blood Brother.
There is one character who readers of Blood Brothers will recognize, but that character has a has both a central and peripheral role. I'm not going to be any more explicit about that, but all the people who are on stage in this book are people who you've never met before.
Now you're going to bring all the characters together for another book?
Well, there's always a possibility. I mean, I definitely am going to do more books that take place in this universe, and I wouldn't be surprised if you have several people who have a tremendous amount of charisma and energy and who know what's going on, because most people do not understand what's going on. It's getting more dangerous all the time. It would be unlikely for these people not to bump into one another, and so I'm sort of populating a world. Stephen King has Castle Rock, H.P. Lovecraft has Arkham, what the heck.
Go for it. Create
Absolutely.
your own city. You mentioned that you were getting better as a writer. Can you put your finger on why you're getting better?
Well, I think that part of it is just practice. Part of it is a deeper sense of connection with the kinesthetics of my work, to be able to feel my way through, to trust my own intuition, to be able to understand the basic patterns that make writing work, to understand my own theories of that. I mean, I've always said that you need to have a theory of writing, or a sense about writing that you can tie in with your own primary representational system. Some people see things, some people imagine things, some people hear things, some people can feel things, and however it is that it works for you. I think for years I sort of could hear the music in a story, and now I sort of feel my way through it. It's very kind of basic now, and I think that a lot of that is a process of working and working and working and trimming away the fat and continuing to find ways to tell the truth and to mind your own experience and to listen to feedback from people so you can tell whether or not whether or not they're right about whether you're good or not, but whether or not they seem to understand what it was you were saying.
Yeah.
I think that almost anybody can learn basic skills sufficiently to be able to write, but the question of becoming a good writer is at least partially due to how honest are you willing to be, how much are you willing to mind your own experience, how often are you willing to put onto the page those things that really make you laugh or cry or turn you on or scare you. If you're willing to do that and expose yourself in those ways and you're willing to keep learning from the things that happen to you into your life, I think you become a more mature human being and you become a better writer.
Mm-hmm. One of the other new books you've got out is a Star Trek book.
Yes, it is. I would. There's a part of me that doesn't believe that I actually did this, but I wrote a Star Trek.
Why don't you believe you
novel.
did that?
Because Star Trek novels take place in a universe which is very tightly controlled by a group of people called Paramount.
Yeah.
And these are people I do not know and who have no particular affection for me, although they have no particular disaffection for me either. And I would never think that I would be able to get an idea that would interest me past them. You know, that my particular twisted sensibilities would always run afoul of them because they're very, very protective of their characters. However, a very special situation came up in which they wanted to do a story which is based on an idea for an episode that'll be coming on in February, late February, where Sisko has a fantasy about being a science fiction writer in 1953 in New York. It's a brilliantly written episode. I did not write it. I wish I had. It was from an idea by Mark Scott Zicree, and I fell in love with it. And so they wanted me to write it, and I was faced with the question of would I be willing to spend a month intensely working on this and nothing else, and hardly even seeing my family at times, in order to complete this book in a month. And I considered it to be a challenge, and I went for it. I never thought that I would do something like that.
Yeah. Now, how much did they give you about this? I mean, did you get the script?
I got the
what?
script.
Was it the final, or
no?
did they spring any surprises?
A week before I turned it in, or about 5 days before I turned it in, I got an updated version of the script. That was amusing. I definitely had to get
now Sisko's fantasizing being Jules Verne.
No, if they had done anything as drastic as that, I would have said I can't do it in the time that we've got here. I did the best I could. I would have done the best I could, but there's a point beyond which I simply could not go. No, he was fantasizing about being a black science fiction writer named Benny Russell in 1953. And
were there any black science fiction writers in 1953?
I think that Samuel R. Delany was around.
Was he writing that?
I think so. I'm not completely certain.
Yeah. Yeah, because in my mind, Samuel Delany is really fixed with the 60s.
It could be.
And I don't know if
there
he
may
was
not
writing
have been
back
any.
then.
You know, on the other hand,
there should have been.
I don't know. I mean, it's the questions of why there have been so few
Yeah.
minority science fiction fantasy writers is a complex one and not an easy one to put your finger on. That's a whole different discussion.
Yeah.
But let's just leave it with I am glad that there are more coming into the field now.
Yeah. How much flexibility did you have in creating this novel out of this? Because the screenplay was for a 1-hour drama. That's right. That's about 50 pages of script, and I needed to create about 250 pages of a book. Turn on those adverbs and adjectives? No, that would only stretch it up at the maximum to about 120 pages max. I ended up having to create an entire second story, entire B story, to amplify the first story and set it off. There was no way I could have vamped enough to stretch a 50-page idea into a full novel without making major changes. Couldn't do it. What did you have any trouble getting them to approve the B story, or?
No, I just turned it in. You know, I didn't run anything past them. I just did it and trusted my instinct. Now, John Ordover at Pocketbooks loved it, And I have heard nothing negative back from Paramount. But then again, I've been on the road for a week and a half, so it could be. No, I've picked up my mail. As far as I know, everything is fine. But then it's the holidays, so I don't anticipate any problem because it's not. I was respectful of their characters, respectful of the situation. I simply needed a way to open the world up.
Yeah. Even having a script in front of you, defining all the action and stuff. That's a lot of writing to do in 1 month.
That's true. And if
how did you hold the pace? That's a lot of words a day.
I just had to set that number of words to do, and it was something along the lines of 5,000 or 7,000 words a day. I forget what it was I set for myself, because I wanted to write the first draft in 2 weeks, so I'd have 2 weeks to rewrite it. I had just finished revising the copy edited galleys on Iron Shadows, and was on my way out the door to take it to the post office when my agent called with the assignment. So I was tired, and I had been working myself really hard, and this came down the pike, and I just kind of decided to go for it because the idea was novel. It caught me off guard. It was different, very different from Iron Shadows, which is a contemporary story of the supernatural within a very realistic context, but it was also the kind of book I want to practice writing, that it took place in our world. Even though it was historical, 1953, it took place on Earth in our world, and that's the direction I'm taking my work.
Yeah. You've also done screenwriting and other things where you're playing in someone else's field, so you must be at least at some level used to playing with other people's characters.
Yeah, I know, but it's hard to put my own heart into there. It's hard to put my own soul into that. I don't write for money. I make money so I can keep writing. I love writing,
yeah.
But the little kid inside me who started this path does not understand making money. It understands writing things that move me. And so if I play in somebody else's universe, unless I'm able to do a story that matters to me, it's probably not going to be emotionally satisfying.
Yeah.
And that's a real key with me. I'm not capable of doing good work if I'm not emotionally involved.
Yeah. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's gonna be fun. I was talking to Mark a while back, and they were doing all sorts. They were having all kinds of, for the TV show, they were having a lot of fun with like ginning up cables and not cable, covers for magazines.
Yes.
And things like that.
Yes, I actually saw some of that stuff. And apparently they had a wonderfully fun time doing it.
They do things on Trek to have fun. Natural horror.
Yes.
And that's a very good segue over to Tananarive. As she was sitting here writing something, she looks up and goes, "Oh God, my turn." Oh.